yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here behind the scenes as usual these days for interviews. But we have the usual suspects in the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have Spiggs 18, we have Alpha Dean or Dean. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch and subscribe to us over on YouTube. It is a great help for our channel, and we really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. But without further ado, Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
Well, you know, it's an interview night. But before I jump in interviews, I do have a quick little announcement as well. Just wanted to let everybody know that our good friend over at MCG, Charles Ryan, is an author, and he's actually getting ready to launch a Kickstarter for a book of his, the Mason of New Orleans. We're going to have links up for all that coming and everything, but I've read the first chapter of the Mason of New Orleans, which is the first book, but then there's a follow-up book that he's going to be trying to crowdfund. I just wanted to let everybody know, take a look, take a gander, because the first chapter so far has been pretty doggone good. So I just wanted to say that. But
for those that don't know and people watching this on YouTube, Charles M. Ryan is the COO of Monty Cook Games and a fantastic writer in his own right.
Absolutely. I should have said that too. But thank you, Anthony, for clearing that up. But tonight, we have none other than our good friend, Chris Negelein, also known as Ganza Gaming. And we also have the illustrious artist who Chris has worked with to put together his first crowdfunder, you know, and things are getting ready, are moving along, and everything's been great. So we have another Trevor Roberts here, who is a excuse me?
I just want to do a little correction. He's the creator of Mystery Freddy. He's not only the artist, he created the entire thing.
I am responsible for that, I guess.
I stand corrected. Not only the artist behind Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, but also the creator, Trevor Roberts, artist, writer. You know, he's a writer and artist from the arid plains of Lubbock, Texas. His work's been featured in video games, short films, literary collections, products online, international publications, you name it. It seems like Trevor's had his fingers in it. And the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park is a fictional history. It's world building. It's just really, really phenomenal. It's got a very stringent level of realism, and it combines fantastic and bizarre ideas with a richly detailed exploration of people, places, and objects and ephemera in these worlds. Our friend Ganza, that everybody knows out there in the lands of the CU, otherwise known as Christopher Robert Negelein, he's a game and story writer. This man is wildly imaginative. He was worked on Esper Genesis for 5e. He's done quite a few products that have been featured on Drive-Thru RPG. I think, haven't you been a platinum seller over there, and also a mithril seller?
If I've done mithril and platinum, you're going to have to show me what those products are. As far as I know, it's only been gold, but I am flattered with the honor, though.
But anyway, Ganza is probably one of the most prolific people through the Cypher Creator Program, and you know, this was a wildly successful Kickstarter that he got to helm, and I think he was the first of us to put something out under the CSOL, which is the Cypher System open licensing. So without further ado, welcome Chris, welcome Trevor. Please say hello to those people out there in the interwebs who've come to hang out with us this evening and talk all things Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome to the CU. That was a long and awkward introduction, I must say. But Chris, I'm a card carrying member of the cult of Ganza, so it's old hat. You've been on the show more than enough. So I would concentrate it on Trevor. Trevor, welcome to the CU. Your first time here.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
I would say it would be painless, but that probably isn't going to be true. But
Nothing's painless in the mystery flesh pit. This is we're just getting started here.
Absolutely. Can you and Chris? It's not. I'll say this. Our audience knows Chris. If you're a Cypher fan, and the majority of our audiences are Cypher fans, what Dean was saying earlier, is not an exaggeration. He's probably a content creator that most of us have either played in his games or purchased his products. So we'll concentrate on you for this for the moment. But tell us a little bit about yourself, and what do you do with Mystery Flesh Pit National Park?
Well, I'll just first, yeah, I will also, having now worked with Chris for the better part of almost 2 years now, that we've kind of been back and forth working on this the Flesh Pit game. Yeah, he's the man. He knows what he's doing. He's been a pleasure to work with. He's talented. There's zero way that any of this could have even gotten started without his tremendous skill set and creativity that he brought to the project. So I consider him like an equal asset in this project that we've done. My name is Trevor Roberts. My handle that a lot of people know me by online is Strange Vehicles. Way back when I used to be more on Reddit. Yeah, I made the Mystery Flesh Pit. I am guilty of that. I am a writer, an artist. I've been a product designer. I've been an architectural designer. I've done graphic design for the better part of 10 years. I have a short attention span, so I kind of move from thing to thing. So after a long enough time, that's kind of made me think that I can work on multiple different media.
Mystery Flesh Pit is a perfect example of that, by the way.
It's all over the place.
You incorporate so many. It's hella cool. You incorporate so many different forms of media in one site. It's very unique. I never saw anything like it until Chris actually told me, "Hey, check this out," and I fell down that rabbit hole.
Well, it's been very fun to work on. I think whenever people ask me, or I'm in conversation at a in-person event, and somebody asks, "So what is this the Flesh Pit thing? What is this the project that you're working on?" My brother actually gave the best description that I've ever heard. He said, explaining it to a friend of his, basically he built like a digital tourist trap. That's what the Mystery Flesh Pit website is. He said it is a straight out of the the 60s, like off the highway. Just come see this amazing, horrible, disgusting thing, and then also exit through the gift shop, buy a T-shirt, as Chris here is.
Dean?
I was just gonna say, I agree 1000% that this is like just one of those interesting things that you see. I think Chris got me and Anthony the same way, because he was like, "Hey, Dean, check this website out," and next thing you know, we're all sitting there. So, I mean, just so everybody knows, Mystery Flesh Pit is a fantastic website. It was a website beforehand for a fictional place. Can you tell us a little bit about, where did you come up with this idea for such an innovative project in the first place?
Sure. So originally, it started on Reddit, on the r/world building subreddit. I've been on there on and off, again, probably 8-9 years, posting, reading, discussing. And how it started is this is back summer of 2019. I was working for a architecture firm, and I was taking my lunch break, And so I go into the break room, and I see one of my coworkers has left out, I guess from breakfast, half of a cantaloupe sitting there on the counter. But I mean, that was breakfast, so it's several hours later. So now the cantaloupe, this is West Texas, so it's very hot. It had started to seriously decay and look pretty putrid. So I'm waiting for my lunch to microwave. I'm looking at this rotting kind of cantaloupe just there left on the counter in this yellowed 70s office building break room, and the wheels start to spin. And I'm looking at this and I go, man, that would look so horrible if you were like this tall and you were standing right on the edge of this, like a giant, like a crater or a cave opening. And you just saw all this like pulp and the stringiness and seeds and stuff. So I took my phone camera out and I just like snapped a low angle photo. And then as I was eating my lunch at my desk, I opened up Photoshop and started, kind of messing around. And I found a picture of the Kimberley open pit diamond mine in South Africa. And it's like a flooded natural formation. So it's a very steep kind of small cave opening. And I just photoshopped it in there and then thought, okay, so it's a cave thing. It's got a big, meaty thing. And I said, well, it should be red. So I changed the color to red to be more flesh-like, and then started thinking, why does this exist? And I said, okay, I'll do a quick like a works progress administration poster. So I mocked it up real quick in Illustrator, kind of put some text on there, and just started writing just what I thought was goofy, just like, okay, what's some weird, like, just goofy stuff. And then I put it again at the end of that hour on the world building subreddit, and people really were interested in it and they wanted more. So in kind of the weeks and months after that, I started thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll build this out a little further. Maybe I should come up with some history for this fictional mystery flesh pit. And and then from there it just kind of started snowballing on its own. There's so many, just thousands of elements to it that kind of all, I like to say, they almost invent themselves, because all of the problems that introduces. So things like, what kind of equipment do they use? What's there to see? If it's a giant thing in the ground, surely there's parasites and stuff that live inside it. How does it affect people out in the world? So that kind of thing. So that's all where it started, was from a coworker's careless decision to leave half of their breakfast out in a break room.
I find that hilarious that thousands of images and this whole storyline came from a decaying cantaloupe. That is awesome.
It's weird. I don't know.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Guys, I know some people in chat have already been putting questions, and that's fantastic. If you have a question for Trevor or Chris, just please preface it with the word question so I'll know to cut it out and put it on our document. And we'll ask as many of them as we can after we ask all questions. And thank you so much. I already see some great questions being posted already. So you talked about the website, and you spoke about Chris earlier, but how the hell did the two of you meet up, and how did you decide to turn Mystery Flesh Pit into a role-playing game?
I guess Chris can best answer why he decided to. He reached out to me. I believe it was just an email, and it was a very thorough, email with like a solid plan, a kind of roadmap of how he'd like to do it, what the time frame would be, and what the ultimate product it would be. And so that the thoroughness of it and how complete, even at that first email, the idea was, really struck me as, okay, this gentleman knows what he's doing. But I'm not sure. I don't know how he got to Flesh Pit.
So it was a combination of two things. I had recently got introduced to the Mystery Flesh Pit through the Curious Archive YouTube series. Mm-hmm. That's a series where they cover lots of science fiction and speculative stuff. A little bit kind of like the Flesh Pit website itself, like semi-serious. And I was like, that's really cool. And then also Charles Ryan, which we mentioned earlier, he reached out to me and he said, in about 3 months, we're going to go public with our own open license. And we would like you and a couple of other people. At that time, I had no idea who they were. I'm glad to know that I'm hanging out with those guys. Also the Marlows are fantastic people. And I had like 5 ideas of things I always wanted to kind of do, but I felt constrained by the community content. That's why Charles reached out to me, is because, as you mentioned earlier, at one point, half of the community content was 50% me. It's shrunk over time, as I haven't dabbled in that as much as I have. I am yearning to do that again, by the way. And I said, okay. And I also pitched the Mystery Flesh Pit. And this is like serendipity, because his answer back was, just today, my son showed me that website, and we were talking about how awesome that would be as a role-playing project. And I was like, woohoo, let me see if I can actually make that work. And, I reached out. I had kind of noticed, looking over the website and his merchandise and did a little research and kind of got an idea of, the kind of things that, Trevor may or may not want to tackle and that I didn't want to tackle, which made some of the decisions for the Kickstarter. So it was kind of like already kind of planning things out. And then I reached out to him. I said, you know what? He doesn't know me from Adam. I don't have, street cred yet. This is the street cred or Kickstarter. So I laid everything out, and I was just very straightforward about how I wanted to do it, because I didn't want to give him any surprises, because, our industry is just littered with a whole bunch of just painful, amateur and non-professional sort of stories, and I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So, and like I said, it's very straightforward, and then just figuring out where we wanted to do things that also helped me kind of get the Kickstarter figured out to some degree, and then cross my fingers when I set it out. And then he said, I think it was, the answer was yes, you wanted to make a role-playing game, and no, you didn't have that skill set, so let's continue talking, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's this might get me some flack from your audience, but I'm not a major RPG player. I'm not even a big video game player, but I know many people who are very vocal fans of the Mystery Flesh Pit had already been back in 2020 making their own modules and things for other games, and asking, is this ever going to be a role-playing game? Is this ever going to be a movie, a TV show, whatever? And so when I started talking with Chris about kind of this vision he had for it, it just all kind of meshed, and it was like, okay, this is this guy knows. I did a little bit of research, but I liked that I would just be dealing with him. I wouldn't have to be dealing with a large publisher or I liked kind of the indie-ness of it. I really resonated with me, and I thought I feel like that's a better way to get a more thoughtful and fun product in the hands of people who like Flesh Pit stuff.
And you know what? Nobody will hold it against you for not being an RPG player, but we can change that if you like. We definitely can change that.
I have learned so much in this process about the games, and it's a little bit my relationship with a lot of these both tabletop games and video games is I'm very interested in kind of the decisions that go into them, the art, the narrative story, the interactivity of it especially is very intriguing to me as an artist. For me, it's just as I mentioned earlier, my focus switches so quickly that I've created so many other tasks for myself that I don't have much time to sit down and devote to that.
We understand that as well. But again, if you decide you want to try it out, just let us know. So,
I'm pretty sure Chris has that covered, Dean.
yeah, so, hey, I'm throwing my hat in there to help out. That's all. So,
Well, that is one of the projects we got to wrap up as a stretch goal. Is we have 2 groups where I'm going to run one, and the other one is going to be I and Trevor are going to run one for the guys.
nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I mean, you guys had a wildly successful backer kit for this project. Can you tell us what you learned from the experience and were you nervous about getting it funded?
I'll let Chris tackle this one. So much of that Kickstarter was his doing, and I believe all that praise goes to Chris.
Well, first, I was terrified. But like I said, and that's why I kind of hedged my bets, because I mean, just perfect example. We've seen the Crooked Moon 5e Kickstarter, like 4 million, and you get all sorts of goodies, right? And we're not even going to talk about the Cosmere RPG that just happened. I mean, the last time I checked, it was 7.5 million. I don't know what it is now, but I guarantee you it's more than 7.5. And I bet, a lot of Kickstarters, they have this big excitement and they have this kind of trough, and then they have this kind of big excitement at the end. I guarantee you his trough is going to be much more slight than most of them. So that's why I was offering things like, print on demand, because I don't want, you see the space back here? You see that there's no boxes of like product back here? That I want to keep it that way. And I think Trevor does too, to be honest. But yeah, I had a lot of faith in the product. I mean, yes, it was a wildly Kickstarter, but I mean, just the name alone, and I always have to do this with my fingers to make sure I don't miss anything. Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. I mean, just the name alone, somebody always goes, but when they actually look at the website, it kind of sells itself pretty much. Probably one of my first big things I've learned from here on out is if you have somebody officially endorsing your product, get their name way up in the front, because if you put it farther back, you'll get a lot of people who are very passionate about the IP asking you, is this official? Is this official? Is this official? And you have to answer those questions. So like that's the big thing I learned there. Maybe a minor thing, but like I said, compared to the other parts. And I'm still learning, because we still have to deal with shipping, and that's going to be the other big challenge. That's always a big challenge with Kickstarters, is the shipping nightmare. Like perfect example is the Catalyst Game Group guys, Labs guys. I'm sorry, they did an $8 million Kickstarter.
That's an easy Kickstarter.
Yeah, and they found out that their shipping was horribly off. That they were very below the mark. So, but yeah, if I had to do it again, I probably would have done more of the straight print on demand product we're offering in the near future, like right now on our backer kit, and like in the future as we just continue as a product. So what that means is you probably won't see it in a game store. You'll order online. However, if it turns out to be wildly popular, we can go back to Kickstarter and do an offset print run. We'd be happy to do that for at least another $69,000, if not $70,000.
I'm sorry, I should have said this earlier, but because I'm a backer, and usually when I'm a backer on things, I just get it when I get it. You know what I mean? But how far off, or because I know you could go now if you didn't back the project, you should be able to go now and actually purchase it. How far from us actually getting the full game in our hands?
Well, like a lot of Kickstarters, I was hoping that we would hit May, which was our promise date. We have put out a beta PDF for some last minute typing, and also typo and proofing. But we're hoping to get that wrapped up. We're hoping here that it's within the next couple of months. We're going to be sending the files to DriveThruRPG, because they're going to do the print on demand.
I'm so excited.
Exactly. And then the bonus for that for small guys like us is if you get a bad book, instead of us having to reship you the book you deserve and losing money on it, it's, Drive Through RPG that are going to have to answer for the poor print quality instead. But hopefully, in the next couple of months, as soon as we get some, we arrange some more art and get the typos out, the PDF should be going out. The Cypher PDF should be going out everywhere. That's another little Kickstarter thing we've had is people the 5e rules were a stretch goal, but people kind of assumed that means retroactively they are the pledge levels, which is not.
Yeah, it's a whole separate,
I bought the 5e book. I'm like,
work.
what? I'm sorry. What'd you say, Trev?
I was just gonna that's a whole other thing that needs to be done. It's
And we have a great guy, Rich Lescofair, that Dean, you guys have met.
Esper Genesis.
Yeah, Esper Genesis, which is where I kind of cut my teeth on getting in the business. He's going to do the 5e and he's going to do the layout. He's doing the layout. For those who do have a sample beta PDF, if you love the layout, you can thank Rich. I had no doubt in my mind.
Layout is very good. It's Rich did a fantastic job.
I have a funny Chris story. When this was first announced, I don't know, maybe it had to be the same day it was announced. Me and Chris were chatting on Discord, and Chris was like, "Man, I hope this thing funds." And I was like, "What are you freaking kidding me? This is absolutely gonna fund. What are you talking about, Chris?" And I always thought that was hilarious to me. Chris was worried that he wasn't gonna get it funded, and I was like, "This is absolutely gonna fund." And how long you didn't? It wasn't even 24 hours that you funded, right?
It's fully funded at our expectation. At our beginning rate, whatever you want to call it, as my brain dies, I guess. 8 hours, and under 8 or under 7 hours, it was fully funded.
Yeah. So it must have been when you first posted, but I was like, "What are you nuts? This thing is gonna fund."
You don't know, until it's done.
Listen, there are certain things that I'll say there's an intuition, a gut feeling, things that we know just because we know. Because I had to say the same thing to somebody else we know about their project funding, but we won't mention any names, Al. But we know these things. Ganza, there was no way it wasn't going to fund. Come on, buddy. You have a cult following on the server. It is the cult of Ganza. So,
and you guys were the first cultists. I do recognize that.
All right.
Trevor, you were a one-man show on the website, right? You did everything. You built the lore, you did the illustrations. So how was it designing the art for a role-playing game instead? And did you learn anything from that new experience?
Well, I was speaking to how Chris had mentioned our target date originally was May. I will take blame for a big chunk of that. The delay was on me for art. I've got a 2-year-old son who I'm the primary stay-at-home parent. So my office is his bedroom. I'm in the corner of my kitchen right now here doing this. But that's my ability to get out the arts was not as quick as I would have preferred. So that is the reason for a lot of that delay was just waiting on me to get the art to Rich to do the layout, to do manuscript editing, that kind of thing. But as far as making the art for the RPG book, in many ways it was a lot more straightforward in that there was a clear here's what needs to be done, and just draw this thing, or draw this map or draw this graphic. So I did enjoy kind of that. With many of the materials you see on the Flesh Pit website, so many of those were kind of just a one-off idea, or I would see something at a thrift store or a junk shop that kind of was like, oh, that thing should be a Flesh Pit. Like I could do something with that. But with the book, with the RPG, it's a lot more fun. I enjoyed getting into the weeds of the creatures and the tools and things that might not just make sense by themselves on the website, but for the purposes of an RPG book to depict what this object or entity is that you're dealing with. clearly the more like technical illustrator side of my brain really enjoyed that aspect of it. So overall, it was a very positive experience.
Oh, so I'm gonna ask this. If you can answer this, what is the weirdest thing Chris asked you to illustrate for him?
Gosh, man. I think the one that threw me for the biggest loop. There's a specific piece of equipment that players can use in the game, and I think Chris knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that one, and I think it was because he described it to me a very very straightforward concept. I think it was the mind melder. What was it? Do you remember what?
The mental masher.
Yeah, the mental masher. That's right. He described what this piece of equipment should do, and I think for me, I'm always trying to think, okay, how would I actually build this if I was a lot of my training educationally is in engineering, and so that's where, especially with machines and tools, that's where my mind goes. And so, man, I probably spent several days like researching, like okay, how to memories, like way that I did not need to be done. And so, which I enjoy that, but again, I'll go back to that's why a lot of the art took time is because I really get into it, and I probably went through. I think the first like draft sketch I sent Chris, I had like tried my very best to like invent this technology, and so it was like this unwieldy thing you'd have to like wheel in on a forklift, with like that's the kind of thing I designed, and was like, yeah, this is how this would be done. And he's like, no, we can't. Like, people got to hold this and shoot it. Like, there's no way. And so that was kind of like, oh yeah, this is a game. That's right.
Yeah,
that was probably the weirdest thing.
And even then, it was a great kind of collaborative effort in the end.
Fun, yeah.
It's for the metal masher is a piece of equipment the person in black gets, like the man in black. So, in my head, I was thinking something that was very close, but needed to be legally distinct from like the Men in Black movies.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm thinking something handheld, and then I get the forklift. And then I'm like, and then the forklift becomes like something that's, not just like a rifle, but like, borderline, like, law rocket. And then, another flavor that I like about the Mystery Flesh Pit is I say it's cosmic horror meets bureaucratic satire, because you'll have a photo of something that's like, and just prosaic, like, dull government bureaucraties here on the other side, the wilder the image, the more you get a government report than you do like a creative brochure sort of thing. So I finally said, you know what? This part of it is people forget it exists. It kind of like erases itself out of everybody's, out of the mundane people's regular memories. And that made it just even more perfect for the kind of weird world, because writing for the Mystery Flesh Pit, it's a little harder because I can't put crazy image with every snarky thing I'm putting in there. I have to kind of balance that out, or imply it.
That's a
great.
perfect lead-in for Dean's question.
That's a perfect. Yeah, I know, because I was getting ready to harass you, because we told you thought you were getting off easy, and we were going to focus on Trevor, and you just set yourself up for this question. It's like perfect. So really, what's been, well, first of all, how's it been writing for the Mystery Fresh, designing Trevor's world for Cypher? But what's been the most challenging aspect of designing for an existing IP?
Well, part of it for the Mystery Flesh Pit is still trying to put a little bit of that bureaucratic humor and satire in there, and trying to develop mechanics to reflect that, or redress them in different ways. Perfect example is we have a thing, we don't have insanity, we have conformity, which is basically the more you're looking and you're sitting here in this weird space where there's not a single 90-degree angle, there is not a hard edge. You go back to your cubicle and suddenly you're just arranging everything just perfectly, like right around the edges and that sort of stuff. So, the higher your conformity gets, the more ridiculous you get. But, trying to think that, oh, well, you know what? I don't care if they're screaming down the hall. I still have to fill out this incident form. Finding ways to like implement that in the game. But then again, I had people go back and go, well, this needs to be funny. So this thing needs to do this and explode. And I'm like, okay, there's funny in the Mystery Flesh Pit, but then there's slapstick. And, where do you kind of draw the line when you're trying to write that and imply that? I mean, I think one spot I even say literally, when you're done, you'll get extra experience points if you fill out the paperwork after you played with this toy.
How much freedom in the lore that you have to incorporate into the existing, concept of the national park? Like, did Trevor give you a lot of freedom to add additional stuff to it?
So I actually have a little sidebar that addresses that in the PDF. So either you haven't read that sidebar or haven't read the PDF or don't. I'm trying to. So, well, let me start off with Trevor has spoiled the hell out of me. I will probably never work with another person who owns an IP that will be this accommodating and this open-minded and just excited to work with me. Probably never again. But he said, and I quote the guy that's wherever he is, fun game first, Mystery Flesh Pit second. And that actually made me feel the responsibility even more, to be honest, because that's a lot of trust, a lot of trust. And I was very, very flattered and touched by that I was getting that much of a sort of thing. I probably could have gone crazier, but I still tried to kind of keep with the flow. More of our monsters aren't ridiculous and scary, but they aren't all like xenomorphs going out to kill you. They're just dangerous because you're dumb when you're around them. You're poking a thing with a stick. What do you expect to have happen?
So, Chris, one writer to another, and for you too, Trevor, you guys just both made me think about it. Working in a environment that you can, kind of grok and get into, did it make it easier, for you to try, to make you feel a little bit more conformist with your ideas, if you will, versus, something that, you always felt like, well, it was missing this or was missing that? Because from what I'm hearing from kind of both of you is that it was kind of a match made in heaven between the two of you. Could I be onto something there?
My perspective on it from the beginning was that Chris liked the IP and I guess by extension my creative contributions to the world in the first place enough to want to undertake all this work to make this product. So it was like that was a lot of trust he put in me just de facto. So it felt like if I'm going to do this 100%, be fully involved with this, like I should extend the same professional courtesy. And I'm glad I did. It's turned out great. Chris's contributions to the lore that didn't exist prior to his writing, they feel extremely organic in the way that they fit into the world. They feel like very natural extensions. What I've said to fans and people on the Mystery Flesh Pit Discord and on Twitter and other places who kind of asked me about how close is this going to be? I tell them Chris gets the world. He understands the kind of the thin line of the tone between that, as he mentioned, the humor, but also there's horror elements to it. And so I'm very happy with all of his contributions and like Match Made in Heaven might be a great way to put it. It's been great working with him.
I'm going to actually jump in here and ask a question you probably we're going to ask anyway. Dean, the toughest thing I had is a perfect example is, I've had people come up and go, Mystery Flesh Pit, that seems like a very kind of focused thing. How are you going to expand on it? And I'm kind of like, are you kidding? My hardest part was trying to really parse down. You could do from the 70s to the 2000s. You could do cubicle, the office drones and like blue collar sci-fi, like right out of Aliens, to like a whole thing that hasn't really been looked at and covered is like, what if you get infected with something and you're on the run, a fugitive? I took so long trying to figure out how to like squeeze that down. And Kevin Hite, who is a really great horror TTRPG writer and just borderline genius, if not genius. He was on a podcast. Ken and Robin talk about stuff. You should check it out if you like horror, especially modern day horror. And he said sometimes you just have to put things in sidebars. You can't go down all the rabbit holes that you want to. And for those who aren't familiar with the project, my compromise with that is 3 different frameworks, which basically is the park employee, which is what people probably think of when they think of a Mystery Flesh Pit scenario. Mm-hmm. Then there's the subcontractors, which are basically where your people in black and other people do the veil out or do the cover up, which can get surprisingly dark. Maybe not surprisingly, but really dark really fast. And the fugitive thing. And again, I still have to be careful because you can, like I said, from the 70s all the way up to the 2000s, there's just a lot of room to play in the Mystery Flesh Pit. And that was the hardest thing, was just staying focused and not having the book spell out into 1,000-page tome.
As a player and a GM, you have a ton of room to work with and a lot of ground to cover. So there's hours and hours of gameplay in there.
I mean, yeah, like I said, the whole thing is just, it's to me, it seems like a proverbial playground for both, the player and the GM, if it's done right. So,
all right, so with Cypher Unlimited, so we're gonna let's talk some Cypher, Chris. What makes this stand out from standard Cypher system? And can you tell us a little bit about the mechanics or rules that you added to the game that makes it unique?
Sure. Actually, I should have pulled up a list. I forgot. I bring it, and I always 5 minutes later, 5 other things I forgot. Probably the smallest rule that matters the most with my Cypher for the Mystery Flesh Pit is your XP cannot force a reroll on a GM intrusion. You're going to take a GM intrusion. Because a lot of things kind of just and it's a popular house rule as well, but because it's so many things fall, you kind of spiral from that. Speaking of, that's what I call it, spiral mode. It is a flavor of what people know as horror mode or void mode when it comes to the science fiction version of Cypher, because those, in addition to all the other things you can do, making conformity checks and all that, and a conformity check, those things get modified by easements and hindrances versus having your score getting impacted immediately. You have it's all connected to a corruption mechanic called PBSO manifestations, because as Trevor will tell you, PBSO is the Permian Basin superorganism, which is the in-world name for the Mystery Flesh Pit.
We like our acronyms in Flesh Pit.
Yeah, very much so.
Lots of acronyms.
The mental masher, that whole masher is an acronym. I can't remember half.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Trevor's like, I feel ya. So we have a corruption mechanic that wasn't in there before. We have a whole new flavor because all of your powers are what we call PBSO manifestations. So that's the only way you can get powers, is by using the flavor mechanic. You can see how a lot of Cypher stuff has been tweaked and changed. We've got some new descriptors. We've got some new classes. Probably the big thing that may throw some people off is we only go up to level 3, tier 3. I'm sorry, we only go up to tier 3 in the game. I felt like, you know, the mystery flesh pit, while Cypher can do all sorts of crazy cinematic things, we wanted to kind of tighten it down. And then on top of that, if you pay attention to the numbers, you'll realize your starting Cypher character has less starting points than a standard Cypher character. So, I mean, you could still, to some degree, as long as you keep in mind that your character is probably going to be a little underpowered to some degree, you could still stick him in or give him some more points. So in addition to that, while there are a lot of familiar ciphers, a lot of them have been tweaked. Everything has kind of a negative component to it. One of my favorites and one of the first ones I made up was the ultraviolet goggles, which help you see in the dark, right? That sounds like a standard cipher. Oh, by the way, ciphers are not ciphers. They're called prototypes because they come from R&D. But when you put them in, the wires inside the goggle go into your brain, and there's a chance you might hurt yourself when you pull them off.
It was a very fun drawing to make.
So that was, you know, that's kind of the flavor is, you know, well, Cypher is very, you know, open and cinematic. There's a lot of things where you're just, you know, I've had some people, they're like, this is not the Cypher for me because this is hard. And I'm like, yes, because this is also horror. You're going to fail more often. And that is no diss in any way to anyone, how anyone else plays horror. If you want to do it with D6 and, you know, Mighty Cook Games, they've done the awesome, you know, old Appalachia. Still have 6 tiers. Is the 6th tier the same for like some of the other Cypher games? No, but it's still horror. It's still very personal. I did it my way and they did it their way. And I hope everybody enjoys both ways, to be honest. I'm trying to think if there's any other things I've changed. Like I said, it just kind of takes me a moment to remember all the things because they're all little, a lot of them are just little minor tweaks and things that just kind of all add up after a while. I think that's most of them, but don't quote me.
I mean, that sounds awesome though, Chris. I mean, and that's the thing, you know, when people look at Cypher, if they know Cypher, it's normally nuancy. Nothing is ever drastic. And that's why it becomes plug and play, you know, modular in nature. Plug it in. If it works for you, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And, you know,
perfect example, I just remembered. I took XP and I changed the numbers, and now you have grit that does some things XP used to do, and then you have XP for advancement. But now they're 2 separate beasts with different values. Go ahead. I'm sorry. See that I told you that happened.
But no, that's why I, you know, take the time to open my mouth or start running it kind of off kilter, but on purpose, because that kind of just leads us into the next question. What advice would you give the audience, you know, any audience members that wanted to get into designing, you know, or content creation as a whole? I mean, because what you're saying is like the meat and potatoes of what Cypher is all about and what most creatives do. So what would you tell somebody?
Well, I would tell them, especially with Cypher, that you're blessed because Monty Cook Games has given us the keys to the kingdom. Compared to what some other, open licenses and OGLs give us, I mean, technically with 5e, you only get one class and one subclass, and then people play games to like kind of squeeze other things in. You don't have to do that with Cypher. Cypher has the whole kit and caboodle and they've been adding more and more things, and then their community content. While they have been very generous. I know everybody wants to, they want to be able to write for Numenera, and Monty Cook wants to keep that for themselves, and that is fully their right to do so. But other than that, or The Strange, you can write for any of their other game worlds they have, or just, write things from their genre books. Monty, they've been very generous in giving you the tools and the toys to play with and make your own stuff. Probably, for some people, I'm sure if you look at they're giving you so much that you have to, my first piece of real advice, and probably most people won't do it, is when you get that Word document for the OGL for Cypher, take the time to read it. And as you're reading it, take and make headers. using that, from Word, and putting them in and putting out the outline view, so you can start having an outline, because when you do the headers and outlines, you can click on the outline and go to that place, and that will save you time, but it'll also see how things are organized so you can find them. And that will make, in essence, later, it'll be much easier to, cut and paste what you need into your first draft before you start changing things. And it's going to take a bit, but there's a lot of things in our industry that's just sheer where I got to do a boring thing because no one else does it, or it's just the way it is. Proofing, editing. A lot of people don't like it. Got to do it.
Before we go into our audience questions, because we have some fantastic ones that we definitely want to ask you, is there anything we missed that you want to discuss about Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, or the project in general that we haven't mentioned that you want to make sure we reach out and discuss?
It occurred to me, for anyone in the audience who may not, this may be their. I know you had mentioned there might be people who this is the first time hearing about the Mystery Flesh Pit. So I think maybe just like a very, very brief synopsis of what the world is, what the story might be helpful. That I just thinking of that. The basic story in the 1970s in West Texas, like oil crews were drilling for a water well, out in the desert, and instead of water coming up out of the well pipe, it was blood. So they start digging, and they find kind of the layer of like skin, organic material, 300 feet below the bedrock. And as they continue to dig it up, they discover, okay, this is a massive organism that extends hundreds and hundreds of miles in every direction underneath this kind of barren part of the country. And down, the size is just down almost beyond imagination how far deep it goes. So they start cutting into it to explore more of it. And eventually they find there's fluids and gels and minerals that this enormous organism, the flesh pit, produces that have tremendous commercial value in the pharmaceutical, chemical, energy, and manufacturing spaces. So they start extracting like full mining operations, by the late 70s, 80s, at which point the entire thing is absorbed into the national park system, because of course the government wants to regulate and kind of, control this, basically a buried god in the desert. And so they turned it into a national park. And things, go swimmingly. Trails are built inside the, like in between the viscera, and they mine out bone and develop pockets of this thing's anatomy into tourist spaces, into plazas and hiking trails. And there's a whole visitor center that hangs in kind of the almost like the trachea of this thing. And then in 2007, there's a disaster. I won't get into the specifics here, but a domino chain of very small but consequential events happen, which results in this enormous ancient organism almost waking up, which would be very bad. So thousands of people die or injured, and the entire site after 2007 is closed down. And now since then it has existed as a government black site, where nobody comes in, unless you were part of the corporate government's entities that manage and control this, that work to keep the giant organism asleep so that it doesn't wake up. And that's the backstory to the website, is that these are all items that someone has meticulously cataloged and found and scanned that all relate back to this kind of golden era of the park. And so in the past, the elevator pitch I've given for it is it's sort of like Journey to the Center of the Earth meets Fantastic Voyage meets Jurassic Park is kind of the best way, I think, to very, very condensed get the idea. So that's the world. If you're not familiar with Flush Pit, that's what we're talking about.
I always love the concept of, hey, there's this massive living creature. Let's build a national park around it. That's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's what I would do. We have a ton. If you guys, we have a ton of great audience questions. Do you mind if you guys have time to answer a few of these?
Absolutely.
All right, Mac the Frog asks, has the abyssal copod ever drank water?
Hi, Mac. I know who this is. Hi, Mac. Yes, they do drink water. They have gills. The interior of the flesh pit is a living environment, just like inside us in any organism. So it's pitch black. It's wet. It's very dark, claustrophobic. So all the creatures that inhabit the flesh pit, these parasites, but these things are enormous. They're the size of elephants' cars to us because the parasites, in comparison to the total size of the flesh pit, are so small that even its parasites are enormous. So they're all loosely based on like aquatic crustaceans and real world parasitic flatworms, and there's things descended from centipedes. There's a fan favorite, of course, the abyssal copepod is a very popular piece of wildlife. But there's another one I designed that is a weasel, millions of years ago species, crawled down into the flesh pit and then sort of devolved to where now they're almost like an oyster down in they don't have bones anymore. So they do drink water. Everything drinks water down in the flesh pit.
That's awesome. So the next question came from our good buddy Zil Zaddy. He said, were you influenced by SCP Foundation materials? And would this be considered a containable SCP?
So I've a SCP. Anyone who's been on the Mystery Flesh Pit Discord, we have, because so many people have talked about SCPs, there's now a rule there about if you mention SCPs, you're going to get dunked on, because it's just everybody talks about SCPs. I won't say it's been directly inspired by SCPs, any SCP or the SCP Foundation. What I would probably say is that people who write for the SCP Foundation and myself are probably influenced by similar things. I was there when some of the first SCPs, long before there was a website, long before there was any collection of SCPs in one place. There was just things that were shared on image boards and forums. This is 10, 12, 13 years ago. But yeah, I would say early weird internet horror fiction is definitely an inspiration.
Nice.
Smelly Eye Ellie asks, I guess this is for Trevor, as you expanded on the MFP over time, do the real world environmental and economic impacts of the Texas oil industry continue to influence your world building?
I think if there's specific, very large events that very distinctly affected kind of the space that the flesh pit inhabits, I would be forced to. I really try to keep it that kind of separate, not less for any story or creative reason, more just because I think especially it's easier when it's set in the past. When most of the park happens 30 something years ago, it's easy to kind of integrate it into culture. But if I'm going to try to do that today, that's a tougher thing to pull off that suspension of disbelief. And my excuse for that is that it's a black site. As me writing, putting these things on the website, I'm an outsider. I don't work for the company. I don't work for the government. So this is just all that I can figure out. I don't know what decisions are being made and how these bigger forces are affecting the Flesh Pit. That's a cop-out answer, but
no, actually, that's awesome. That's great lore that everything that's on the website is all a conspiracy theorist, just making stuff up. So it makes it even better. So when you tell your stories in a game, it's awesome. Vixen of the Night 101 says, favorite character to translate to tabletop RPG form, and either Chris or Trevor can answer this question.
Are they talking about an NPC or a monster? I think the Abyssal Copepod was one of our favorites right off the bat. In fact, it's very tempting not to use him all the time because the image of that creature is just so ridiculously scary.
Nice.
Yeah, there's not many, very few named characters in the entire lore of Mystery Flesh Pit, kind of by design. I wanted it to be it's a historical thing, so it's more these events that are bigger than individual people. There are a couple. There's one of a gentleman who was instrumental in the story for developing kind of the early Flesh Pit. His name's James Jackson. He's a oil man, cowboy kind of figure. I'd say he's probably the most prominent named character in the mythos. But at the same time, early on when Chris and I were having some of these conversations about the RPG, to me, it made sense. Like, if somebody wants to create an NPC for Jim Jackson, or they want to play Jim Jackson, all the tools are there to do that. But I didn't want to narrowly define him and put him in a box, because so much of the lore around him is very exaggerated in this kind of typical, Western oil man, larger than life kind of aspect. So it's I think better that people can then do whatever they want to do with him. And the same can be said with some of the other few named characters in the broader narrative.
Nice.
Aspirin 101 asks, I really like the sample adventures that are outlined in the back of the beta. Are there any other plans to make more pre-made adventures, maybe in settings other than the 2007 incident?
So part of our stretch goal was indeed a PDF with expanded adventures, because I've kind of seen that sometimes there's only just so much you can do in one book, and give people a vibe of what to play. I can name a couple of games where, you're like looking at it and you're like, well, where's this vibe I'm supposed to be getting? And you go to the adventures and you're like, oh, now I get it now. So yeah, I'm working on it right now. In fact, I've been inspired recently to see how many different ways I can play with an abandoned mall.
Nice. Redacted Lulz says, what's an osteopathic copepod?
Oh, we're getting really into the weeds now. Okay. Copepods, like the Abyssal, the one we mentioned, the horrible creature, they're species of these crustaceans that in the real world they're microscopic, but in the Flesh Pit, they've grown to enormous sizes. So the apex predator is the abyssal copepod that lives very deep in the flesh strata, and it somewhat resembles a enormous white lobster that has pale human elongated arms that it can use to reach and strangle people. But underneath that kind of apex predator, there's several orders of kind of secondary feeder and smaller copepods that are closer to maybe the size of a dog or a cat. And one of these is the osteopathic copepod. So these creatures, which all of this is outlined in, Chris has put together an excellent bestiary in the book with all kinds of information on including these creatures and wildlife in your games, and kind of where they would be appropriate, where they would be found in the flesh pit. For example, the osteopathic copepod is unique in that it inhabits bone structures, which in the flesh pit are as big as mountains. They're enormous, huge, miles and miles deep, massive, to the point where when they're mining this bone material for construction purposes, it looks more like a mine, like a salt mine. Massive, cavernous, big spaces of white rock, but that's bone. So while they're digging around in here, there's chances players or entities down in the flesh pit may encounter a colony of these horrible little dog-sized, shrimp creatures that skitter out blind and bite and have venom and things. So that's osteopathic copepods.
All right, I'm gonna butcher this name because I am dumb, but that with the insane. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but will the Amanus Colossus wake up one day despite having the work of an unidentified device?
Okay, so the Amanus Colossus, that's the scientific the Latin nomenclature for the mystery flesh pit, the large organism. Amanus Colossus, that's like a terrible giant. Will it wake up? So almost certainly, if that's that would be, I think, on the scale of destruction of like maybe the Yellowstone super caldera exploding. Like that's kind of the destruction that we're talking about here. Something the size of Ohio just getting up in the middle of the country, probably fairly pissed off, and starting to wreak havoc. So it's how do you even begin to mitigate something of that size and scale? So it will absolutely at some point wake up. I think it's in the universe of the flesh pit. It is. Everyone just hopes it's a long time from now. A lot like Yellowstone.
Oh, so it was pronounced Zach right. I'm so sorry, dude. Or do that. I totally messed that one up.
We got another question from Redacted Laws, and they said, will there be a second fauna chart of the other fauna in the pit?
I haven't put together a second chart yet of all of them together, but there are several new illustrations exclusive to the book, to the RPG book, that do not appear on the website, that are new creatures that have been described, but people have not seen what they look like. So that's part of been the excitement, is kind of keeping some of this secret so people will be surprised.
And updated art as well.
Yes.
Chris, Ken Help asks, when are you running another MFNP one shot for me and the guys? We did talk about Keta. We did talk about that a couple of months ago. We just never got back to it.
Well, I'm looking here at the Cypher Unlimited online convention, and I do have a Saturday slot, 4 to 8, and I do have a Sunday slot. I'm assuming it's the same time-ish. We could do that, or, hang out some other time to get it done. Give me just a moment where this was. This was, also Sunday. No, Sunday is 8 to midnight.
All right.
I mean, if you guys want to do it then, I'll be open to that. We might even have a special guest.
I don't know if we could do it, because I think we're probably running at that same time too. But we could definitely do something on stream. We'll get the band back together to, do another live
Trevor,
session.
did you see that? Because you guys recorded that, right? That's on YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
on
on
YouTube. Yep.
I did when it was posted. I forget how long ago that was, but yes, I did see that.
That's good. Okay, guys, we got 4 more questions from the audience, so we're gonna rock on. Chicken Von Sandwich says, "Where did you get the idea for the current lower visitor center's design? Like the shape of the exterior, the fact that it's suspended in the center of the nexial cavity, and just the general design of the thing. Is there any pieces of media or real life architecture that any of those attributes were inspired from?"
That's a good. I like that question. A lot of people people are so fascinated by the creatures and the pit itself. But I do put a lot of work into the technology that people use down in the pit. So the lower visitor center, originally it went through many different iterations, designs for what it was going to look like. At one point, it was going to be sort of like a silo, like a tower that was straddling some like a bones or something. Then it was like two inverted pyramids, kind of, so like almost like a diamond shape. The one I settled on, the final design that's sort of a UFO shape, really came from just the architectural process of figuring out what does this building need to do, what are kind of the primary program features that it needs, and then what space is it going to inhabit. And so those factors kind of led to that oblong, rounded design. And then from there, it kind of went, okay, well, how would they do something like this at this scale, in the early 1980s with what they had? So that's where it became very angular, lots of kind of space frame trusses. So lots of, I would say, more than any single inspiration, a lot of kind of early Epcot at Disney World was a big inspiration. A lot of the structures there, of course, Spaceship Earth, being a geodesic dome, but also the Imagination Pavilion with those two glass kind of pyramids. The Wonders of the Biology Pavilion that's been closed now for several decades, but the Wonders of Life Pavilion is a big kind of geodesic triangular dome, and so many of its features. So that was part of it, and then so many of the buildings, the visitor center, the trails within the flesh pit all have very heavy roll cage structures, to prevent them from being crushed by all the muscle and the tissue around them. That was very drawn from Jurassic Park, from concepts I've seen for deep sea vehicles, kind of that have to withstand this pressure, off road, that kind of thing. And of course, mining technology and equipment. I've got a reference folder on my desktop that has easily 10,000 photos of mining trucks and equipment and vehicles and engines and mechanical parts and submarines and every kind of other mechanical doodad. So that's kind of all of that synthesized.
A lot of people in chat are saying they could totally see the Epcot inspiration now.
I'm glad, yeah.
Zeal Zaddy asks, what is the best music to listen to while being slowly digested by the Permian Basin organism?
Oh, gosh. Chris, any answers?
Something that helps you suicide faster. But on a related note, on Spotify, there is this a channel or these albums that are called Dark Country, which is country, but it's got kind of a rock and roll kind of dark edge to it, and that kind of helped inspire me to some degree. Thinking about Texas and all this kind of crazy stuff. It kind of got me in the mood when I was writing stuff.
Nice. Okay. Efrino01 or 01 says, "What's the best way to prime players who aren't familiar with MFPNP? Question mark, and then it says just send them to the website? Question mark."
I think Chris might have some better real world experience with that.
So, I mean, that don't discount that the website is a great is a great resource. In fact, I've had a couple of people in the industry say, "Is there a way you can duplicate that website so if anything happens to Trevor, you still got that?" And I'm like, "Is there that's fantastic?" And I'm like, "Yes, and it's Trevor's. Thank you."
Trevor, I don't know. That sounds kind of creepy. If I was you, I'd start locking my doors.
Right.
If
One of the,
something happens to Trevor,
Well, no, as
on you.
one of the shticks I did. See, one of the shticks I did is basically, I come say hello, welcome, and and kind of dressed up a little bit. Welcome to your interview process with Anodyne, and and it's like we're using a new kind of methodology called role playing. Would you please pick one of these characters to represent what you feel like you could do in our organization, and use that as a whole introduction to the whole, and then and some of these include some silly things, but we're just just humoring them at this time. There's no such thing as people dying inside the flesh pit and during hiking season. No, they don't suffocate. No. So that's one way to kind of do it if you're doing it especially as a one shot compared to a campaign. But I think the best way to do it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the book does a very good job of kind of assuming that you do not know what the flesh pit is. So it has a very good kind of introductory section that gives GMs and players a lay of the land of the major concepts, the major world, in a very concise kind of way to get all the major points to then play a game, and then have fun introducing. Oh yeah, there's also enormous parasites that will try to there's giant bacteria that will swarm you and dissolve your skin. But that's later. That's you don't need to know that for the job.
And we have to give full props to our editor, Kidge Johnson, who did that, because that's the first thing she said. Is she said, "Chris, I can tell the main challenge we have here is you have been so knee deep in this for over a year. You've forgotten what it was like to be new and to be introduced to this world, which I am having happen right now." And she had so many questions to help kind of narrow down that lore section in the front. So it's easier for people to kind of go, okay, if I'm not on the website, this helps.
Did a great job.
Yes, fantastic.
Bounce asks, will you have setting info for both people that want to run a campaign during the live mining period as well as the post-disaster closed park period?
I feel like inherently the time frames that kind of work with that is, if you want to do like a park employee, that can be either the rangers or the park guides or the miners, and that when things start to become a black site, there are still things that are happening and there are side effects. That's when a kind of a person in black campaign, a subcontractor campaign, can kick in. Though you can have a little smudge there back and forth, like a retired park employee is now working with the veil out team because, well, what else is he going to do? He can't go back to working the park again, and things, especially during the heyday, were getting covered up. So that's kind of my suggestion. And then a perfect time for fugitives is right after 2007 because of the huge catastrophe. The government and the corporation, they've got all their focus on containing and trying to rebuild things. This is kind of where you can slip between the cracks and get out there and hopefully have a normal life until literally something may change that for you.
Yeah. And there is in the book a full timeline of major events in the history of the world. So yes, there is information and context for players and GMs for any of the major times in the history of the park.
And I don't think the website has that timeline. That's pretty much in the book because we do more concrete.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last of our questions, but there's something that keeps on came up in chat like 20 times. So Trevor, I have to ask you. Everyone keeps on posting in chat, or the same 3 people keep on posting in chat. Say, Trevor, talk about the Roblox game. So tell us a little bit about the Roblox game.
Okay, man. So for about as long or longer than I've been working with Chris on this RPG, there have been a very talented group of developers, modelers, artists, programmers who have been building out an extremely accurate in virtual environment of the park in the game Roblox. That I've contributed a bunch of concept designs for their team. So I would say the closest thing, if you're wanting, I know we're talking about tabletop RPGs, but if you're very much wanting a video game for the Flesh Pit, I would say the closest you're going to get is that Roblox experience. And I know for me, I heard Roblox. It's kind of I associated it with a kids kind of thing, but this is very much it's Flesh Pit. It's it's oppressive meat caverns and dark lit tunnels, and there's wildlife, there's creatures they've implemented, and all of the weapons that park rangers have, the very large rifles and things like that. That's all in that game. So go check out Mystery Flesh Pit Roblox.
Is it still available now? You could play it now?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. They run a huge server, yes. And they've been doing that. They've been working on that map, better part of 3 years now. They're just about to release, I think, they finished the lower visitor center, the big structure
Awesome.
I was talking about. So that's going to be a major new addition.
That's great.
That's so awesome.
And it's funny because I've never had a desire to do anything with Roblox, but now I guess they're going to get, some of my time and money.
Well, and
it's getting a personal tour.
It's free. Yeah. It's there's now players who they know every inch of this enormous. I mean, they're very much the size of a national park. It's an enormous expanse. And this goes again for the players of the tabletop game as well. I think earlier when we were talking about, Chris was talking about people asking, how can you, are you worried that maybe won't be big enough? And I think a lot of the time people, they might not really understand the scale of this organism. That when its lungs in universe, they don't refer to them as lungs. They refer to it as a bronchial forest, because that's how big these are. And in this Roblox game, the development team has worked on that. They built it out to that scale. Like I personally, I don't like to play it much because it's very spooky. You get lost. It's very dark and scary. And it's free. It's free to play. Anybody, you can go on there and log in and start exploring. So there you go. There you go.
So awesome.
There's your plug, guys.
First of all, if we missed your questions, I'm so sorry. These guys still have a game to finish designing and finish working on. We couldn't keep them here all night. But thank you so much, chat, for the fantastic questions you gave us. Chris, Trevor, thank you so much for coming on and not only answering all questions, but answering all the chat's questions. You guys have been fantastic. Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. If you haven't checked it out, please go do. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, all the links will be there for you to go support these two guys' great project. I'm so excited to get the actual project in my hands. I can't wait to play it again. Someone who's have experienced the actual play with Chris, let me just tell you, this is a fantastic game. We had so much fun, and I can't wait to visit the national park again. Dean?
Thank you.
And I'm just going to say the same, kind of second what Anthony said. It's great. Trevor, finally, I got to meet you, and, it was well worth the wait, lived up to the hype. Chris always said that, just talked about your creativity, and your energy is awesome. So thank you for coming on our show. Thank you for sharing with our audience.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We really appreciate it. Chris,
What-
you know how we go, man. I'll catch you around somewhere, put you in a headlock, let you know I still love you.
Before we sign you off, where could your guy share your social medias for our audience to follow? Where can you be reached on?
On the internet.
So for the Flesh Pit, it's mysteryfleshpitnationalpark.com is the main website. It's the first result on Google. There's not many other things with that name. I'm on Twitter or X, whatever. I am at Orbital Oddity, and I have a Patreon. It's T Roberts. So yeah, that's my thing to plug, I guess.
How about you, Chris?
So I do have a Patreon. It is Ganza Gaming. Though I have to admit, it is a little quieter than it should be, because I've been when I focus on these projects, I'm just there. And it's been so long since I do Twitter occasionally, but you can find me there at Chris R. Negelein, Negelein, which is why why professionally I go either by Ganza Gaming or by Christopher Robin Negelein, because those are much easier to spell and remember. And I also wanted to just let you know, it is my fault, but I need to talk to Tammy, because Tammy's made it clear that she would like to have some Mystery Flesh Pit at Gamehole in October.
I'm excited.
We're gonna make some of that happen.
On that one. Yep.
I'll be there. I'll be looking for a copy. One last question. Do we have the information on how we can get some Mystery Flesh Pit gear and paraphernalia?
Absolutely. You just want to go to shop.mysteryfleshpitnationalpark.com.
Right.
There's links on the website. It is, like I said, it's an internet roadside tourist attraction. There are plenty of obnoxious banners on the website that point to the online store where you can buy T-shirts. We sell hats. We sell. We've got patches. We've got posters, prints, art. We've got. I think I'm going to put some of these. I've got these little enamel pins that I'm going to be adding back here in maybe a couple weeks.
Those are nice.
Are you still selling the Muddy T-shirt, by the way?
It is. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Have you made stickers yet?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, we have stickers. We have.
I need one for my laptop.
We have plenty of stickers. All of your Flesh Fit needs can be provided at shop.mysteryfleshpitnationalpark.com.
Look, after I saw the pictures of the guy as the park ranger at Gen Con, I'm really tempted. I think I need to be a park ranger or maybe a man in black or something. That was just awesome.
That was a very cool cosplay.
Jason D'Souza is a friend of the Kickstarter and a friend of my Patreon, and just a straight out friend of mine.
You heard it here first, guys. Go pick up the merch. Go to Mystery Flesh Pit website, get all the merch you need. Go. You can still back it now, even though it's fully funded. You could go and pre-order, right? Correct? Am I
correct? You can pre-order the PDFs for Cypher and 5e. That's for the PDFs. I'm sorry, and also the print-on-demand discount links. How that works is you basically are paying us kind of for our work, and then you get a link where you buy the book and you buy the physical warehouse. I mean the warehouse cost of the book and the shipping. So overall, you'll pay what you pay for a regular book. It's broken out into different chunks.
Yeah, and guys, if you're still undecided, go check out the website. Go check out the backer kit, and I guarantee you, once you see those two platforms, it's going to make the decision for you pretty easy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Trevor. If you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Monty Cook games. We have the largest fan run of Discord server for everything MCG, but if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. It's not as big as the Discord, but there's still great conversations being had there daily. If you find any kindness in your heart, give us a subscription here on Twitch, or like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channels. We're still trying to build both platforms up, and any help you could give us will be greatly appreciated. Our videos are always free, but if you want to help us out financially in any way, you could give us a little donation on Ko-fi, or go to our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch like this shirt Dean has on. And yes, CypherCon merch will be available for during the run of the con. And last but not least, we love you guys.
Yep, thank you guys so much for coming by. Thank you, Chris and Trevor, for talking to us about Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. Definitely very excited to see this product, especially the Parasite entries in the book. I said it multiple times in the chat. I need to see art for those bad boys. Anyways, thank you everyone again. And as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later. Peace.